The devotionals for this week are around 5 questions. These are the 5 questions. The first question is, have you ever felt broken? Spiritually, physically, mentally, in any part of your being. Have you ever felt that you were so broken that you couldn't heal yourself? The second question is, have you ever felt fragmented and afraid? Rushing from thing to thing and afraid that somehow you wouldn't or couldn't control the outcome. The third question is, have you ever felt burdened? Perhaps carrying something that's just a little bit too heavy. The fourth question is, have you ever felt alone? And perhaps you're around a lot of people. Perhaps you're married, you have children. But in spite of all those people, you felt alone. The fifth question is, have you ever felt disconnected? You're engaged in a lot of activities. You're involved in a lot of things, but somehow you feel sort of disconnected. Life is like a jigsaw puzzle, a box filled with all these pieces. And you look at those pieces and you wonder, does it really make a picture? Or perhaps you're like a friend of mine who, in her office, she holds a jigsaw puzzle piece, and she's looking for the puzzle. She found the piece, and now she's looking for the owner of a possible puzzle that's missing that piece. Life is like that. You look at your piece, or you look at the pieces, and you ask yourself, do they really fit together? And when they do, will the picture make sense? This devotional series is about all of those questions. It's about wholeness for life, not just wholeness as a destination, someday at the end of life or after life ends. It's about today. It's about a way of living. So we'll go with the first question, and that is, have you ever felt broken? I was getting my hair cut one day, and as I sat in the chair and the salonist was cutting my hair, all of a sudden we heard a little thud. And I said, what was that? And a man looked out the window. It was kind of dark outside. He looked out the window and he said, I don't know. I can't. Wait a minute. I think it's a bird. It's just a little bird that hit himself on the window. I don't think he's moving. Wait a minute. He looks like he's got colors on him. Oh, must be dead. No, I think he's alive. Well, by that time, I jumped out of the chair with my plastic gown flapping in the breeze, and I ran outside. Sure enough, there was a little bird. But by this point, he was standing there, blinking his eyes at me with his beautiful little green coat. It was a parakeet. And I waited. And I stepped closer, and he just stood there, blinking, looking at me, and I stepped closer. He never moved. I thought, now he really is stunned. And I picked him up and I put him in my hand, and his little skinny legs and his feet just stood there as he blinked at me. So I carried him in to the salon, and I said, I've got a parakeet. Either he's very stunned or he's tame. I've never had a bird before, so I'm not sure which. I said, who can help him find a home? As he stood there and blinked at me. No one budged. No one said a word except, I can't take a bird. I can't take a bird. So I thought, okay, I'll take him to the pet store. So I put him in a little Tupperware container, and off we went together, the little blinking bird and me. I came to the pet store, and I took him in, and I said, this little parakeet hit his head on a window, and he needs a good home. All the while, he's blinking at me. So I handed him over, and the shop owner said, oh, we'll find him a good home. I said, well, he's going to need someone to really care for him. He's going to need maybe a few toys, or I'd never had a bird before, but I figured he needed toys. So I gave my list of requirements for this little bird and his adoption, handed him over, and the shop owner said he would find a good home for it. And then suddenly it occurred to me, as I looked at all the other little parakeets waiting for, quote, good homes, that I might be the best home that parakeet could have. So I said to the shop owner, could I adopt him? The shop owner was a little bit surprised, as I was. I had just handed the bird over. Well, sure. He said, you can adopt him. I said, okay, I'll adopt him. So I took him back. Now, all the while, he's still blinking at me. I bought all kinds of little toys, a big house for him, and I took him home. I opened the Tupperware container thinking that I would have to keep him from flying around. He got out of the container, stepped onto my hand again, and then headed this way. And then he ended up on my shoulder. And I thought, this is the strangest thing I've ever experienced. I'm looking at him, he's looking at me. And so I start walking around the house with this little parakeet on my shoulder. And I'm thinking, this is a fragile little creature. And there he stands at this height. His wings have been clipped. He doesn't seem afraid of falling off. He seems perfectly content right there. And then all of a sudden he did something that nearly broke my heart. He leaned into my neck and began to nuzzle. Just like he was just kind of nipping at my neck, but not hurting me, just nuzzling against my neck. And I found myself saying something that I had not planned. I turned and I said, I love you so much. And that's when I heard the whisper of God. It's a text that I had remembered from Matthew 6. Matthew 6:25. Therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or think, or about your body, what you will wear. Look at all the birds of the air. They do not sow or reap or store away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they? I want to ask you the question again. Have you ever felt burdened? Have you ever felt broken in a way that you couldn't heal yourself? Wholeness is about understanding that we have a God who loves us and heals us in ways we could never imagine.